Here's your host, Jason Voorhees. And Aaron Savage.
Ooh, yeah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Jason Voorhees.
What's going on, brother?
How are you, Jay?
Doing well. How about you?
Good. We got a lot to talk about this week, and I don't think a better place to start would be obviously with the country opening back up. Things are starting to get back to normal. I actually went out this past weekend with no masks, out to dinner and stuff. What? Who would have thought? So things are getting back to normal. Fans are back in the arenas, back in the stadiums, and nowhere is it more apparent than in the NBA that fans are out of control after being locked up for a year. What is going on, dude?
It's been absolutely insane, and that's putting it lightly. I've never seen anything like it, like the last couple weeks especially. The NBA, I believe it was 4 separate incidents just in 1 week.
Dude, it's absolutely out of control. It's absolutely. You had the fan in Boston who threw the water bottle at Kyrie's head after the Nets beat the Celtics in the playoff game. Narrowly missed his head. Dude, you had the incident in Philly with the Wizards. Who'd they dump the popcorn on? The Sixers fans.
I forget. It was
on a blank who they dropped it on. Anyway, and then you had when the Sixers were in against the Wizards on the road, you had the Wizards fan basically just ran right onto the court. I mean, it's been constant. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And the fans have so much access at these NBA games. It's so easy to get on the court. It's scary, dude. It's absolutely scary. Dude, I'm looking at a quote here. I know that being in the house for a year and a half with the pandemic got a lot of people on edge, got a lot of people stressed out. We're not animals. This is Kevin Durant on the Nets talking about the Irving incident where they almost hit him in the head with the bottle. We're not in a circus. You come into a game, it's not all about you as a fan. Have some respect for the game. Have some respect for the human beings. And have some respect for yourself. Your mother wouldn't be proud of you throwing water bottles at players or spitting at players or tossing popcorn. So grow the F up and enjoy the game. It's bigger than you. Obviously, Durant's speech referred to some of the other ugly incidences, involving fans in the NBA playoffs. But he did note, the fans had been locked up for the past 14 months. It's no excuse, though. And the thing that boggles my mind the most about it is, as a fan myself, I have been so excited to see fans allowed back in the stadiums. I can't wait to get back to a game. I just can't understand how, after being away for so long, that you finally have this privilege to be able to go back and see live sports, and that you want to get yourself banned for life over something so stupid. And there was a spitting incident in Philly, I think. No, that was at the Garden. That was at the Knicks, the Knicks game in the playoffs. And they were spitting at a Knicks player, I think. Dude, who spits? There's nothing more disrespectful than to spit at somebody. What? You can't go to a game for 14 months. You're finally allowed back at the Garden, and you're spitting on a player. That's disgusting. And you shouldn't even be allowed to go to a game. But I just don't understand the mentality. And, dude, it transcends the NBA. I mean, there's been incidents in Major League Baseball. I don't know if you saw the other night, there was that brawl in Houston, the Dodgers-Astros game. Did you have a chance to see that?
I did.
Dude, it was brutal. It was brutal. The one guy, he was wearing the Mookie Betts Dodgers shirt. He was landing hard hits on the one dude's head. I mean, they should have an assault charge on him, bro. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
Well, you just hit it on the head with the assault charge. And I guess my biggest frustration is like, let's face it, it's nothing new to have fan incidents. I mean, there's fan incidents every single year. But like you said, and Durant referred to in his statement, yes, people have been cooped up for a long time. And it seems like there's a lot of pent-up energy and frustration from not being able to go to games. However, yeah, exactly. To your point, why would you want to ruin a good thing? And this is what pisses me off. I actually heard fans, complaining because the guy that threw the water bottle in Boston got charged with assault and battery. And let me be honest with you here. That is the exact problem. Because, see, the punishment never fits the crime when it comes to this kind of stuff in a normal circumstance. Generally, the person just gets banned, from a game or future games for that year or maybe for life. To me, that's not serious enough because fans don't take that seriously. They don't give a shit. You think a fan really cares about that kind of punishment? No. But if they start throwing assault and battery on somebody like they just did with this guy, it might make people think twice about jumping out. Well, that's fine. Maybe they heard me and they're pissed off.
Yeah, they're pissed off.
I mean, honestly, that's part of the problem. And it's not just in this. It's in everything in life. There's just never enough punishment. It's always like, let's take the easy route. No, something like that. If somebody goes and throws a water bottle, yes, they should be charged with assault and battery. I don't care. You know what? They should have thought of that before they threw it. Because first of all, what would have happened if the player got hurt? I mean, somebody could lose an eye, and then what would the fan be saying? Oh, well, I didn't mean it. It was a water bottle
or get a concussion,
or a beer bottle. Like the bottom line is, it's unacceptable. It shouldn't be tolerated, and I'm glad that this particular incident in Boston they took it to the next level. And shame on that guy.
With the majority of the NBA being made up of black players, you have to wonder, is there a racist undertone to the behavior? And Durant kind of hinted at that. He said, we're not animals in a circus. We're human beings. But people don't respect these players. They think that they're animals in a circus. It's disgusting. And on that note, Jay, you actually sent me an article this week. And like you had said, you're surprised it hasn't had more traction. And after you sent it and I read it, I feel the same way. But what's going on in the NFL with the $1 billion settlement for head injuries in the NFL? Let me pull that article up. Speaking of racism, the NFL says it will halt the use of race norming, which assumed black players started out with lower cognitive functioning and a $1 billion settlement of brain injury claims. The practice had made it harder for black players to qualify. So in essence, they're saying that black players were assumed to have less cognitive function normally than white players. So when they're looking at the potential of brain damage for a black player and they're comparing it to what his cognitive function would have been, they're saying that there's not such a differential compared to the white player. And there were actually some black players that would have qualified for certain benefits in the settlement that were unable to get the benefits because they were black. It's absolutely insane.
I sent you the article and I had to read it like 3 times. I couldn't. First of all, a lot of times when you see an article and you see it, the title of the article, a lot of times it can be misleading. But I cannot believe that this is not a bigger story. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, this is it. First of all, after I read it, I was horrified that this is actually going on and has been going on in the NFL. And I guess the bigger thing to me is that nobody said, who's speaking out against the NFL? Nobody's covering it. I haven't seen it on one national news media, not ESPN, not, even my local stations. I have not seen this. The only thing I did was read the article. And to me, that's a disgrace. I can't believe people aren't pissed off about this and making a big deal, because honest to God, it's absolutely appalling.
Dude, it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane.
I mean, the NFL, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, has basically been allowing and performing systemic racism right in front of people, and nothing is being done about it. Dude, I get it that they said that that the lawsuit is kind of being settled. But I don't get it. It's insane, man. I guess we lost Aaron there for a minute. But, I can't understand why, nobody's making a big deal about this situation. Because honest to God, someone should be asking questions to the NFL. At least that's my opinion. In case you haven't saw the article. I did share it on Facebook and Twitter. Check it out if you get a chance, and let me know your thoughts, because I think it's absolutely disgusting. Not that we should think that racism isn't going on, because obviously we know it is, but to see that a conglomerate like the NFL has basically been condoning this is just mind-boggling to me. And I think it's time that somebody asks the question. I don't know what happened to Aaron. I guess he got booted off. But we can continue on the line. What are your guys' thoughts? Is there anybody out there in the comments section? Let's check it out. Yeah, I think it's Big T. I'm glad you're there, man. What do you think? I wish I could bring you on the show. I think, matter of fact, I am going to bring you on. Maybe we could talk about this. I think it's absolutely disgusting. And I can't believe that nobody's talking about it. Like, I don't see it even being shared by other people. You're there. I don't know what happened, but I was just basically, I brought it to the audience. I said, how about, we get some comments from, people out there. But I think it's, what are your thoughts, Aaron? Because I can't believe it that it's not a bigger story.
Dude, it's absolutely insane. I'm not sure what you talked about while I was gone, but as I had stated before, the NFL has this $1 billion settlement. I'll read this from the article. The NFL on Wednesday pledged to halt the use of race norming, which assumed black players started out with lower cognitive function. In the $1 billion settlement of brain injury claims and review past scores for any potential race bias, the practice made it harder for black retirees to show a deficit and qualify for an award. The standards were created in the 1990s in hopes of offering more appropriate treatment to dementia patients, but critics faulted the way they were used to determine payouts in NFL concussion case. Wednesday's announcement comes after a pair of black players filed a civil rights lawsuit over the practice. Medical experts raised concerns, and a group of NFL families last month dropped 50,000 petitions at the federal courthouse in Philadelphia, where the lawsuit had been thrown out by the judge overseeing the settlement. Blah, 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 blah. So hold on. Words are cheap. Let's see. According to NFL, blah, blah, blah. There's a couple of players here. Okay.
Yeah, they mentioned a few players.
Yeah, there was a two in particular players from the Washington Redskins. I'm trying to find it, that would have qualified for benefits under the plan, but because they were black, didn't, because it was assumed that they had a lower base point cognitive function than a player that was white. How is that not racist? And how is this story not getting more national attention?
I'm confused. I don't understand it. Is it because the NFL is so big and nobody wants to?
Dude, I don't understand how this happened. I really don't. I don't understand how this happened. Oh, here we go. Okay, if it wasn't for the wives who were infuriated by all the red tape involved, it never would have came to be, Jenkins said of the attention being paid to the issue. 3 years after lawyers for former Pittsburgh Steelers Kevin Henry and Najee Davenport say they raised it. So basically, Kevin Henry and Najee Davenport had everything to where they would have qualified for a settlement, I think, of up to $750,000. But because they were black and it was assumed they had a lower cognitive function, they weren't qualified. I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I just think it's mind-boggling. Yeah,
I think, like I said, I can't understand why nobody's, talking about it. My only thing is that I believe that people are scared of the NFL. Well,
obviously they're not. I mean, these black players are going after the NFL. I just don't understand how the story doesn't have.
Well, I'm talking about the media.
More traction.
I'm talking about the media is scared to, make a scene. Somebody should be on this. In my opinion. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
it's insane. And speaking of racism in sports, did you see the Mets game the other night, dude? With Bob Brenly, the Mets.
Another absolute.
Yeah.
I don't get how people that are in these kind of positions, how they can just go off and make remarks like this, and then it's like nothing.
Yeah, dude, I will tell you this. For those that don't know, it was the Mets Diamondbacks the other night. Marcus Stroman's on the mound. Marcus Stroman wears a do-rag. He's obviously growing his hair out. And, black people sometimes wear do-rags to protect their hair. So he has a do-rag on, and he's pitching, and one commentator says something along the lines of, oh, Marcus Stroman's curveball is great tonight. That's become a real weapon for him. And then out of nowhere, Bob Brenly goes, I think that's the same do-rag that Tom Seaver used to wear. What? Dude, first of all, Tom Seaver's white. He never wore a do-rag. Second of all, he pitched 30, 40 years ago. So what are you saying? That Marcus Stroman's dirty and that – and if you know that Tom Seaver never wore a do-rag, obviously there's sarcasm dripping in that comment. Just how is that not racist? And how do you think it's okay to say that? Are you that unself-aware? I mean, even if you were making a private joke to your buddy, it's inappropriate. But you're on a national, you have a national audience, for lack of a better term.
A national platform.
Do you lack that much self-awareness to not know what you're saying, that you're not going to get in hot water for it? And credit to Marcus Stroman for taking the high road. He just simply tweeted after the game, onward and upward, despite the racist undertones. He didn't make a big production about it, but dude, Howie Rose, the Mets radio broadcaster, legendary Howie Rose, he had a great tweet. He said he hoped the next day that all the 25 Mets on the active roster, came out on the top steps of the dugout wearing do-rags in a show of solidarity. They didn't, but would have been awesome.
I mean, honest to God, I don't understand. Like you said, I mean, these people have national platforms, but then again, I shouldn't be surprised because we all know that racism is a lot more prevalent than people would want it to be known. I mean, the bottom line is there's a lot of people out there that will sit there and try to tell you till you're blue in the face that racism doesn't exist, but yet we see it every single day. And those of us that aren't, that aren't black or that haven't dealt with racism, we can't really even begin to understand what it's like. I mean, we can only hope to get it. And my hope is that I always want to learn and try to help. You know what I mean? In whatever way I can do. And if that's voicing my opinion and standing up for my brethren, then that's what I'm going to do. Because the bottom line is there's no place for racism. We should be well past that. But yet here we are. I mean,
speaking of Bob Brenly, I just about 10 minutes ago got an alert. Bob Brenly is taking a week off after Marcus Stroman do-rag comments. Former Arizona Diamondbacks manager Bob Brenly has already apologized for mocking New York Mets pitcher Marcus Stroman's do-rag, but now he's taking a week off after further criticism. Oh, I'm sure that is the same do-rag that Tom Seaver used to wear when he pitched for the Mets, Brenly said.
He's taking a week.
Line is he's taking a week off, but it's really just all about,
Well, he'll probably get fired.
What's that?
Well, he'll probably end up getting fired. I mean, honestly, he should. He probably should because, I mean, like I said, I have zero tolerance for this bullshit, man. I really do. And I think, honestly, I think the only way that things get better, I mean, we've talked about this not only with racism, we've talked about it with, abuse and, domestic violence. There should be a zero tolerance policy in any business, not just sports. Sports are no different than our job, Aaron, because if you and I went into workplace and we did these kind of things, we'd be fired on the spot. So why should it be any different for anybody that's in the sporting world? It shouldn't be. Because
100%.
The bottom line is we're all human beings, and it's a business. It's a job. And when you act like that, regardless of what your job is, then you should be out the door.
Dude, you just nailed it. Dude, people have been fired for a lot less. And I'm also, I try to be fair in my opinions. I hate cancel culture. I do. I think it's gone way too far. Everything anybody says is deemed offensive. But this is actually something that really is offensive. There's no way around it. What could you have possibly meant when you said, oh, I think that's the same do-rag Tom Seaver used to wear? When you know Tom Seaver is white and pitched how long ago and didn't wear a do-rag, there's nothing to be taken from that comment except that you were being racist. There's nothing else to take from it, dude. And like you said, if you're a retail manager, right? If you said any such thing about one of your employees, there wouldn't even be a question about whether or not you'd be fired. You might even be facing a lawsuit, a discrimination lawsuit against said employee. I mean, from said employee against you, dude.
100%.
Right?
I mean, it's like I said, it should be zero tolerance. If it's zero tolerance where I'm at, then it should be zero tolerance in the NFL or Major League Baseball or NHL or NBA. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is a lot of times athletes and people, not just athletes, the people in these, the sporting realm, let's call it, for lack of a better word, get treated differently. And that's why it does get frustrating. There really should be, like I said, the punishment needs to fit the crime. Sooner or later, we're going to come to a point where people it's basically like with your kid, if you let your kids just do whatever they want, then, they're going to end up doing whatever they want. There's got to be some kind of punishment, if you're going to do something that is, whether it's a criminal act or something that's, offensive, whether it's, remarks or, physical, either way, regardless of the situation, the bottom line is there needs to be tougher punishment.
There's got to be ramifications for your actions.
Correct.
That's it.
And until that happens, we're going to continue to see more and more of these kind of incidents, because the bottom line is people just in people's minds, they can just get away with it. So they just do it because they've been getting away with it.
That's true.
But sooner or later, and I agree, there is a fine line, because I'm not into the whole cancel culture and canceling everything. But certain things are serious.
I agree.
And when it comes to racism and, domestic violence, they are two very serious issues, that we're dealing with. And like I said, it just seems like it boggles my mind sometimes how there's just so much inconsistencies when it comes to how those situations are handled. So that's my frustration. Obviously, I'm venting, but
yeah.
That's what we're here for.
A little more positive.
Yeah, let's do that.
Speaking of the Mets, dude, I have to mention it, dude. I mean, I know it's early in the season. It's only the first week of June, and he actually missed 2 weeks, with a lat injury. But, dude, how about Jacob deGrom, Jay? I know we talk about him a lot, but, I mean, he deserves to be talked about a lot. Bro, if I'm taking my MVP pick right now, not just Cy Young pick, but if I had to vote for the MVP of the National League today, I'm voting for Jacob deGrom, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a disagreement from me. And obviously, you're a Mets fan, so you see him a lot more closely and have seen him a lot more closely. I'm a Phillies fan, so I'm somewhat close to New York. And obviously, you being a Mets fan and us being best friends, I do still follow the Mets a lot more closely than maybe someone else, that's outside that would. But I gotta be honest with you. I don't think Jake deGrom gets enough credit, even in the national media.
Yes, I agree. It's not enough.
I gotta be honest with you. What the guy is doing, in my opinion, let's just take the last 4 years. And now, obviously, 2020 was kind of an outlier because it wasn't a full year. But even so, if you take the last 4 years of his career, he has a 1.80 ERA. But first of all, we're not going to mention wins because you and I both know wins are not really, to me, a
you can't
factor.
mention wins in today's game because the game's not played the way it used to be played.
Yeah, so I'm not mentioning wins or losses. So I'm just mentioning the basic stat lines that he's put up over the 4 years. So he has a 1.80 ERA, 710 strikeouts, 115 walks, a 7.29 strikeout to walk ratio. And, 2 Cy Young awards.
Well, dude, you could even take it further, dude. You could make the argument that if last year was a full season, that Jake would have won the Cy Young Award. Well, he had phenomenal numbers.
All right. Well, let's just say he won last year, but even if he
hold on, let
didn't,
me just finish the point I was making. Hold on. So DeGrom last year had phenomenal numbers in the 60-game season and finished in like the top 3 in the voting. And his last start, second to last start wasn't one of his better starts, and it kind of took him out of the race where you knew he wasn't going to win it because Bauer had that insane year last year. And not to take anything away from anybody else, but it was a 60-game season. Jacob DeGrom over 162 games is consistent. He's not one of these guys that you see through 60 games, has that 1.6 ERA and then finishes with a 3.5. I mean, like so many guys do. 60 games in Major League Baseball is such a tiny sample. How many times have we seen a guy have, 15, 18 home runs through 60 games and then finish with 24 home runs? Or a guy hitting 390 through 60 games and finishes with a 274 batting average. Because 60 games is such a small sample. Jacob DeGrom's track record speaks for itself, dude. If you were just going to take the law of averages of what DeGrom did the prior 2 years prior to last year and what he's doing this year, your money's going to tell you he would have won the Cy Young. Now, obviously, nothing's definitive because it didn't happen. But that's what I'm saying. Like you said, last year is like an anomaly. You almost can't count it. No one in the world would ever think that Bauer is a better pitcher than DeGrom. But let's look at DeGrom last year in 60 games. 4-2, 2.38, 68 innings, 104 strikeouts, dude. And his whip was 0.96. Dude, his whip this year is an insane 0.57. He's 4-2 through 8 starts with a 0.71 earned run average. And he's got 51 innings pitched, and he's got 82 strikeouts. So I was just talking about this year, not even going into the last 4 like you did. I'm talking about this year, MVP. On top of that, Jay, he's hitting like 480 on a Mets team that had so much offensive struggles these first quarter of the season, third of the season. When Jacob DeGrom has been pitching and they've been winning like 2-1, 1-0, it's him driving in the runs. That's when I say MVP. That's what I'm talking about, dude.
Okay. And so we're talking about MVP, and let's just say he continues the pace that he's on right now. The numbers that he's going to have this year could be like historic numbers. I mean, 0.71 ERA. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes with under a 1.5 ERA. How many pitchers have done that in a third? Like, let's just say he only pitches 28 games because he has he does get hurt a couple times a year. Let's just say he finishes with 28 or 29 starts and he finishes with a 1.5 ERA. How many pitchers probably have done that in the history of Major League Baseball? You probably can't count them on your hand.
No.
So, wait. This is what blows my mind. He's given up 4 earned runs in 11 starts. 4 freaking earned runs, dude.
Yep.
Okay? And his walks. He doesn't walk anybody. Like, he's old school to the T. Like, this guy is amazing. And like I say, he's not getting the credit that he deserves because, like I said, I'm not just talking MVP. I'm actually at the point where I'm saying, I think we're at the point where we can actually start saying that he can be considered as an all-time great already.
I agree.
At his
I want
age
to
that he's
respond
at.
before we get too off from what you said. I want to say something.
Okay.
Because I don't even agree with one thing you said when you said he gets hurt a couple times a year. That's not even true. This year he missed 2 starts, but it was more of like a precaution because the Mets obviously want to protect their asset.
Well, that's what I mean.
He had this lat tightness and they set him. But dude,
Right.
Let me just get to that though. Dude, prior to 2020, which was the shortened season, in 2017, he made 31 starts. In 2018, he made 32 starts. 2019, he made 32 starts. The only year he ever missed a start, it was 2016 when he had 24 starts. His rookie year in 2014, he won the Rookie of the Year. He made 22 starts, but he didn't come up until like June. And then his second year in 2015, he made 30 starts, and he pitched in the postseason. And he pitched in the postseason in 2015 and 16. And way back in 2015, when he was in the playoffs, that was when you first started to see how gritty the guy could be too. Like as a Mets fan, I got to enjoy that. Like in the playoffs, I remember he had a couple starts against LA where he didn't have his best stuff, but you could just tell he didn't have it. But he wasn't like a guy that would get jacked up and take. Dude, he gutted it out through like 6-7 innings and like kept the team in the game. Maybe gave up 3 runs. He's a gamer. Even before he became the elite Jacob DeGrom, he was great. But I know you were a guest on the Drunk on Broad podcast the other day, and I think that was the show where you mentioned that Jake was a late bloomer. Even that is kind of a misconstrued way of looking at it because He wasn't. He came up in 2014. He won the Rookie of the Year. In 2015, he won 14 games. Mets went to the World Series. 2016, like I said, that was the 1 year he had an injury. He was 7-8 though in 24 starts and 3.04 earned run average. Then he was 15-10 in 2017 in 31 starts with a 3.53. Then he became the monster that we know today. 2018, 1.70 ERA. 2019, 2.43. 2020, 2.38, and this year 0.71. So he's been great from day one.
You misunderstood.
Here's
you misunderstood.
No, but hold on.
Wait.
But wait,
No,
let me
you
just finish this
misunderstood.
sentence.
No,
Jay,
because you misunderstood my use
I'm going to let you
of
say
the
that.
word.
Jay, I know, but I wanted to finish this point. It's not that he was a late bloomer. They didn't even make him a pitcher until he was, in his 20s because he was a shortstop. That's all I wanted to say. He was a shortstop.
Okay, but he was a late bloomer, and the fact that he came up at 26 into the major leagues.
Yeah. But I think saying
and that's what I meant.
Is the wrong.
You missed my point, Aaron. My point is a late bloomer to me is somebody that Ryan Howard was a late bloomer. The Phillies brought him up when he was older in age. Had the Phillies brought Ryan Howard up 3 or 4 years earlier.
I've always said this.
Okay, but that's my point. I'm saying Jake DeGrom, in the scheme of things, is a late bloomer, means that he came up at 26. What I meant is he didn't come up at 21 like Justin Verlander, who had a 20-year career.
Obviously,
that's all I'm saying. That's my point.
I think when you say late bloomer, it implies that he wasn't good and then became.
Okay,
that's like a Jamie Moyer.
That's not the term. But then that's not what. Then I used the term wrong. So that's on me.
Yeah, that's all I meant. In other words, my point is Jacob DeGrom has been great from the day he was. But
I agree with that. So obviously you didn't. You misunderstood my use of the term.
And I think that. That's why I was saying let me finish.
That's my point. My point is that I was saying imagine even how much better his numbers would have been had he come up at 21 like a Justin Verlander. My point is the guy's insane now.
100%. Yeah.
But I guess what I'm getting at is say he just continues on this stretch and he ends up 40 years old, he retires, and he has a Hall of Fame career. Just imagine if he would have come up at 21, like a lot. I'm not saying all.
100%. I agree.
I guess my biggest point about DeGrom is that I am so impressed by his work and what he has become as a pitcher and what I knew, because when he first came up, I remember when he first came up, even you, at that point, I remember Matt Harvey was the apple of the Mets' eye. Jake DeGrom wasn't thought of to become what he is right now. You're wasn't.
Right. As a Mets fan, can I say something? You're right, Jay. That's one of the things that is so amazing about DeGrom. Like I said, he was a shortstop. They knew he had a great arm. They made him into a pitcher because they didn't think he'd ever hit enough, to get called up. But they thought he could be a great pitcher, so they switched him. So that being said, you're right. I remember back in 2014 when the Mets had this plethora of young pitching, and you heard about your Jeurys Familias. That's another one. He's still on the team now. But I remember Jeurys Familia and Matt Harvey were probably the two most hyped guys. And Familia, for all intents and purposes, has had a very good career. I mean, he's been a very good relief pitcher. But
and then Wheeler.
And then you had Zach Wheeler, who they had gotten in the trade. He was a number one prospect with the Giants. The Mets had, they had gotten Syndergaard at that point. So you had Syndergaard.
Yeah, Syndergaard.
And you're not going to believe it, but Rafael Montero was maybe top 2 or 3 of those prospects. He's now a relief pitcher. And after a very, very sketchy career with a 5 ERA. But he was so DeGrom was 6th on the, and Steven Matz, you forget.
Steven Matz.
DeGrom was 6th on the depth chart.
I guess that's my
started being a buzz. There was a buzz. You started hearing about this DeGrom, and I'll admit I didn't really know about him. I was like, "Who's DeGrom?" Because he wasn't hyped like these other guys. But dude, I'm telling you, the day he got called up, he's been money since. And I think when they called him up to pitch out of the bullpen. But I think somebody got hurt and he spot started, and he never left the rotation since.
I mean, and dude, you just hit it on the head, and I think we both agree. And now that you know that I used the term wrong.
I knew all along what you meant.
I mean, now I'm at the point where it's I hate to be a fanboy, but honest to God, I look at Jake DeGrom the way that I looked at Roy Halladay. And to me, Rui Holiday, like for me, obviously the fact that he became a Philly, I loved him even more because he was on my home team. But Rui Holiday, for me, like when he came up, like let's face it, I've been watching baseball, just as long as you. I mean, we both basically, you live, breathe, and eat it. And basically me too. I mean, baseball's my passion. Obviously I became a diehard Eagles fan, and obviously the Phillies weren't good for so long. But my point is like when I really started getting back into baseball, like because I had kind of drifted away for a little bit, like after the strike, in 94, and my baseball passion didn't come back till like maybe the mid 2000s, like maybe I would say around 2003, 2004. And that was right before Holiday, started coming into the league. And then obviously when Holiday started, his name started flashing, I started following him from afar when he was on the Blue Jays. And like just his dominance, the way he is, and I'm not saying DeGrom could be even better than Holiday, but my point is he reminds me of Holiday. Like he's just dominant and he's just like so consistent. I think that's the biggest word that you use. Like, it's just every game you're going to get 7 or 8 innings out of DeGrom. And that's what sucks the most. And I saw on that podcast that I guested on before I got off the show, they asked me a quick question. They asked me, whose career is being wasted more, Mike Trout or Jake DeGrom? And I got to be honest, it's very close. I said Mike Trout because I believe that the Mets have surrounded their team with enough talent that I do think that they could win a World Series. I think the Angels are destined to never win a World Series. I mean, just at least that's the way it's going. So, but I do think there's something to be said about the Mets. Like for some reason, like they can't put it together hitting wise. And it's like, correct. And it just frustrates. I'm sure if it frustrates me as an outside fan, it has to frustrate you to no end.
And I'll admit, I kind of took offense to that question because, like, the Mets did go to the World Series his second year. They went back to the playoffs his third year, and they might go to the World Series this year. So for most of DeGrom's career, the Mets have been competitive and a playoff team. So I kind of took offense in that sense because it's not like the Mets are basement dwellers. But on the other side of the coin, I totally get it because they're wasting his career in the sense that when he pitches, they can't score. Dude, you'll see them score 13 runs. And then the next night when DeGrom pitches, they can't score. And it's like 1-1, 1-0 when he leaves the game. Or even worse, because of the modern day, the way the game is managed, you'll see DeGrom throw 7 shutout innings. And we have talked about it before. 7 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts, 83 pitches. They have a 2-0 lead. Why are you taking this guy out? And they do. Bullpen gives up 2 runs. Another no decision for Jacob DeGrom. So it's almost like through no fault of his own, he's getting 12 wins in a season where he makes 34 starts and has a 1.7 ERA, which is unfathomable. So I get it.
Yeah,
so I took offense as a Mets fan on the one end, but I totally got it on the other end, and I respected it. I mean, it's a waste of his talent. I mean, the guy should have at least 25 more career wins than he has.
Dude, Aaron, Steve Carlton won 27 games one year.
On a team that won 54 games.
And I firmly believe that the way that Jake DeGrom is pitching right now, that he could approach that if the Mets could just freaking hit the ball.
And let him pitch 8-9 innings instead of taking him out sometimes because the way the game is played. That's why I said you can't fault today's pitchers for the way they're being managed. I can't imagine that when Jacob DeGrom has 78 pitches through 7, he wants to come out of that game. No. And that's kind of why when you said he gets hurt here and there, I said, no, it's just the way the game is now. A guy gets a fucking tweak. Oh, we're going to skip him. Oh, we're going to throw him. Then he comes back. They give him 5 innings, 52 pitches, which they did 2 starts ago. And then they got 6 innings in his last start. So basically in the last month, he's pitched 11 innings because they had him skip 2 starts. And then out of precaution, 5 innings and then 6 innings. And you're talking about games where he was dominating. Hey, what's up, Michael? Dude, I'm up for GNR and Hershey. I'm in like Flint. And it's going to be, well, might as well get into it now. We were going to say fans are coming back. Dude, we're pumped. Guns N' Roses back on tour with Wolfgang Van Halen opening with his new project, Mammoth Wolfgang Van Halen. Just another sign that things are getting back to normal, dude. Tours are starting back up. I'm thrilled, Jay. How about you?
I'm definitely stoked. I mean, the only thing that pisses me off is that I had tickets like fifth row for me and you.
Oh, brutal. We don't have them now.
Before COVID, and I had to give up my tickets because obviously they canceled the tour, and then when they rescheduled it, they weren't doing a Philly show, and unfortunately, we're not going. So I'm pissed off because of that.
Yeah. Well, they are doing a Meadowlands show, which is right near me. So that for me, that's easier than Hershey. I mean,
well, maybe we can still get tickets. I mean, if you want to try to get them,
40 minutes from me, bro. And
well, then get tickets, and I'm down. But definitely stoked. I mean, I'm already going to. You and I are going to be going down to Vineland in July, and we're going to be seeing a band called Loungefly. For those of our fans out there that don't know, Loungefly is a Stone Temple Pilots tribute band in the local area. We are absolutely psyched about that. We got front row.
Getting back to shows. We're very pumped about it. And, dude, as far as this Guns N' Roses tour goes, I'm pumped that Wolfie's on the tour. I mean, I love his record. It's crazy. I don't even think the record's officially out yet, but he's released so many singles. It just feels like we've heard the whole album, the Mammoth WVH album. So I'm super pumped for that. I just wish that I know it's been beaten to death, but I wish that we'd get some new music from the Gunners. It's almost like the old days where you keep hearing that they're working on tracks and blah, blah, same old story. I mean, the only difference is now they're actually playing 3.5 hours a night and Axl's not walking off and they're not missing any shows. That's great, but it'd be nice to get a record. It'd be nice to get a record with some new songs, for the tour. Yeah,
well, I said that to you. Like I've said that to you numerous times. Like, matter of fact, last time I was up your house, I brought that up. Like, I don't see why they don't, because I think it would be like, dude, I think if Guns N' Roses came out with a new material, like a new album, brand new, new material. I mean, I'm not saying, obviously, we both agree that Appetite is, probably, well, it's definitely top 5. It could be the top, debut, album of all time.
Between that and Van Halen, top debut album of all time.
Yeah. So we both agree that it's right there.
Yeah.
So I don't think any album that they put out is ever going to touch Appetite. But my point is if they did something now, being that it's been so long, it would almost be like one of those comeback like something actually that probably we've never seen as far as like a comeback album in that much time frame from where they last put out obviously
But dude, I will say this. It's obviously Axl because there's nobody busier than Slash and Duff. I mean, Slash and Duff seem like they put a record out every year. Duff has his solo stuff. He has his Loaded stuff. He just played on Ozzy's record, Ordinary Man. Duff is always putting out records. He's always playing on everybody else's records. And same with Slash. Slash is always on everybody else's record as a guest. Slash was also on Ozzy's Ordinary Man album. Slash was putting out every year an album with Miles Kennedy. I mean, and when he wasn't doing that, he was doing the Snake Pit stuff. These guys are always writing songs. So damn well that they have tons of material that Guns N' Roses could use. It's obviously Axl. We obviously know that. Obviously they got together to get a tour and make money. And it seems like they get along great. And Axl seems like a changed man. But we have no idea how close they are still behind closed doors. And the reality of it, there's no debating why the record hasn't been released. It's Axl. Because we know Slash and Duff are constantly writing material. You know what I mean?
Well, it sucks. I mean, Axl needs to get his head out of his ass and get with the program.
We don't know, but it's easy to assume. But, bro, the time has come. The picks of the week. And guess what? You've been hyping yours up. I want you to go first this week.
Well, I told you were going to be blown away, and you almost gave a spoiler out just a few seconds ago.
Inadvertently, obviously.
Obviously, because you didn't know what my pick of the week. For those of you that don't know, we do our picks of the week every week, and we don't tell each other what our pick of the week is. We just kind of freestyle it and, go with the flow. So without further ado, and I know this is going to make Aaron happy, my pick of the week is actually the Spaghetti Incident by Guns N' Roses.
What a coincidence.
Well, the reason I did it was because I knew we were going to be talking about Guns N' Roses. So I always have a tie-in, and it always has to be an album that I know that Aaron is going to be either enamored with or one that he holds near and dear to his heart.
Well,
And for me, Spaghetti Incident is definitely an album that is totally underrated. Well, first things first, it came out in 1993. It was Guns N' Roses' fifth studio album, coming off the heels of the dual Use Your Illusions. It was basically a cover album, and it's mostly punk rock songs, and there's a couple hard rock, tunes on the album. But basically, for those of you that don't know, Guns N' Roses, a lot of their main influence came from punk. And a lot of these songs were bands that kind of influenced them, growing up and when they were young. So, crazy story though about this record. Of course, what would Guns N' Roses be without a little bit of controversy? So when the album was released, they actually had a hidden track at the end of the album called
Look at Your Game Girl.
Yeah, Look at Your Game Girl. And it was, of course, by Charles Manson. And they got a lot of flack for that. Obviously, like I said, Guns N' Roses was never shy away from controversy. And what would they be without it? So that was the controversy of this album. But basically, to me, I think it's an album that I love. I put it in. It's plug and play. Basically a few of the highlights for me. I mean, there's quite a few songs on it. I'm not going to list every single song, but Since I Don't Have You, that was by the Skyliners. Down on the Farm, that was UK Subs, I believe. Human Being was the New York Dolls. Raw Power, which was Iggy Pop. But my three favorite tracks, and let me see if Aaron's going to agree with me, but these are my three favorites. Not in any order. You Can't Put Your Arms Around a Memory, which is a Johnny Thunders track. And the reason that I love that is because it features Duff on lead vocals. And I just love the sound of, it's just got that raw, edgy sound. And it reminded me of kind of what Appetite, was. The reason why Appetite was so good was because it had that raw, edgy sound. It wasn't like, production, it wasn't like a technical album.
Yeah.
Let's say.
It wasn't over.
Correct. But my other favorite song is Ain't It Fun? I absolutely love that song. And that song actually, to me, sounds the most like Guns N' Roses, especially with the guitar tone that Slash has on the intros and the solos. I don't know if you agree with that. But and then my other favorite is New Rose by The Damned.
Well,
and
dude, I'll chime in and I'll tell you what I think. I will say this. Ain't It Fun is my favorite track on the record, bro. I love the original version by the Dead Boys, and Guns N' Roses did almost a note-for-note cover of it. But the guitar work was phenomenal. I love the guitar on the original, and the way Slash plays it. And, dude, I just love the guest vocal by Michael Monroe from Hanwai on that. That's Michael Monroe on there. Lyrically, the song is just like, oh, my God. Ain't it fun when you tell her she's just a cunt? Nobody's going to say that now. It was just like, dude, love that. I also love, oh my God, who sings it? I don't care about you. Fuck you. I don't care. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Who sings the original of that? I always crank it. Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm looking. I can't believe I'm embarrassing myself.
You're not embarrassing.
Who sings that? Hold on. Well, it's like I'm doing a disservice to the original by not remembering.
Well, I'm looking it up now.
Oh, Fear. How can I forget? Yeah, dude. That's another one. Guns N' Roses did almost a note-for-note cover of the original version by Fear of I Don't Care About You. And, dude, I love the gang vocal. Ricky Rackman does a guest vocal on that. Dude, love it. You got to love the one lyric. I'm from South Philadelphia. Anyway, dude, that's fucking phenomenal. Bro, as far as like not just the punk stuff, another one of my favorites on there is Hair of the Dog, the Nazareth cover. And I will admit, when that record came out, I was in my teens, and I hadn't really, discovered Nazareth too much. I love Hertz. I had heard, obviously, it was on the Dazed and Confused soundtrack, which I don't even remember if that came out before or after. That movie came out before or after Spaghetti Incident, so I might be misremembering the order of events here. But I will say this, the Guns N' Roses cover of Hair of the Dog got me into Nazareth. And I think the Hair of the Dog album by Nazareth is one of my favorite albums of all time. Please Don't Judas Me, Hair of the Dog, Miss Misery, Whiskey Drinking Woman. Top to bottom, the Nazareth Hair of the Dog album is one of my favorites. And it's in the liner notes of Spaghetti Incident. I remember they had a little comment that said, we hope you enjoy it, but make sure you check out the originals, which was awesome because I will admit, I discovered a lot of these bands from listening to the Spaghetti Incident. So I think it's a very underrated record, dude. I think it's unbelievable. I love almost every song on it, and I agree. The Johnny Thunders cover is awesome. Duff sounds almost just like Johnny Thunders. It doesn't pay to try. All the smart boss know why.
I like Attitude too.
Love it. The Misfits cover. Yeah. Dude, the Attitude has been a staple of the Guns N' Roses live show before and since. And another cool thing is you were talking about the UK subs, which is another one of my favorites, Down on the Farm. But at Farm Aid in 1990, here's my son Meyer. Hey, wave.
What up, Meyer?
Get in here. Get in there.
No.
He's out of here. Anyway, but the UK subs, Down on the Farm, Guns N' Roses actually played live in 1990 at Farm Aid. They did Civil War and they did Down on the Farm. And that was the last live performance they ever did with Steven Adler. He was wasted. If you remember, Steven Adler came out to the drum kit and missed a step, fell. He was hammered. He was probably high on heroin. And the story goes that the Guns N' Roses didn't even tell Steven Adler what song they were playing. He didn't even know the song, which I find a little bit hard to believe because when you watch it, he's on point. And I think it was a great performance, but I love that song. I love how Axl does the Cockney accent. All I need is some inspiration before I do somebody some harm, but I feel just like a vegetable
down here on the farm.
Fucking love it, dude. So great pick of the week, bro. I love it.
I knew it, and it was funny because you kind of spoiled it, but you didn't know.
But dude, I think it's an underrated Guns record. I think it doesn't get enough, and it still sold a few million copies because that's how popular Guns N' Roses was then.
Oh, it's platinum.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, it sold a lot of copies for an album that basically had no fanfare, just came
out.
A
cover album, like
a cover album, and it was like basically the soundtrack to them breaking up. I mean, it was the only album that featured Gilby on guitar. It was like the last album that featured Slash and Duff. I mean, so the fact that it did as well as it did, thank you, Donald. It's an underrated record. I think the material on it speaks for itself. I think they did a great job, and I love your pick of the week, dude.
Thanks, Donald. Appreciate you.
Anyway, I'll give you my pick of the week, Jay. And I got to be honest, I don't think we're going to talk about it nearly as much as yours because obviously yours is my favorite band. But, dude, I don't know what it is, but lately I just been on a Lita Ford kick. I'm not sure what got me into it, but lately I've been on the Lita Ford kick. And my pick of the week is her album Living Like a Runaway. Came out in, I believe, 2012. Basically, it was the first album that she put out after her much publicized divorce from former Nitro singer Jim Gillette. So basically, Lita Ford, she had released the album Black. I'm going to check the dates on this. Black came out in 1995. That was her follow-up to Dangerous Curves, which was her last commercially successful record. That came out in 91. That had Shot of Poison, Larger Than Life, Playing with Fire.
Some of her best work.
Yeah, love that record. But then Black came out in 95 at the height of the grunge era. I think it's a phenomenal record, but it didn't do well. Now, she didn't release another record until 2009 with Wicked Wonderland. So 14-year hiatus between records. And it was mainly because she got married to ex-Nitro singer Jim Gillette after like a 2-week courtship. And they moved to some freaking deserted island or private island in Europe. And according to Lita Ford, she lived like as a slave under him. Now, Jim Gillette seems like a little bit of a weird dude, too. He was super skinny with the crazy blonde hair and the pinching his balls, highest voice ever when he sang for Nitro. And then all of a sudden, he became this big steroid-induced thug covered in tattoos when he was married to Lita Ford. So I don't know. It's weird. And so she put out the Wicked Wonderland album in 2009. And if you listen to that record, dude, it's like very, very industrial sounding. He produced it. Jim Gillette did. He has a lot of vocals on it. And it's all about like their sex life. It's just a bizarre, bizarre record. Even the album cover is bizarre. It looks like I don't know, almost like a weird child pedophilia looking sex doll on it. It's just a strange album altogether. So, fast forward 3 years, she comes out with Living Like a Runaway after their divorce. And by this time, she has disowned the Wicked Wonderland album. And she has said about their divorce and how he kept her captive. Now, he has his own side of the story that, she is not allowed to see their kids. This is going back to 2012. It speaks for itself because how many courts are going to make a woman not be able to see her kids? So he has his own side. It was a bitter, bitter divorce, but it gave us the album Living Like a Runaway in 2012. And it was a real return to form for Lita. It was a straight ahead rock and roll record, bass, drums, guitar, vocals, none of the industrial sounding stuff and all this extra nonsense. And it's a great, great record, dude. And what I love about it, it's very autobiographical. The first song on the record is called Branded. And it's basically like how, she had this tattoo on her forearm and I think said Jim Gillette's name. That's why if you see her now, she's got this big black cross on her arm. It was like a cover up of that. So it was like she's saying how he branded her while they were married. Like I said, she said he held her captive and shit. So that's on there. And the song is very much about her relationship with Jim Gillette and their divorce. But one of the highlights is a song called Living Like a Runaway. It's a very mid-tempo rock song, like kind of like a throwback Lita song, very melodic, radio friendly. And it's just a very autobiographical song. It talks about her youth and how she got, left home at a very young age and she's riding in limousines with the Runaways and living her dream. And it's a great, great song. And another interesting thing on the record is she did a cover of the song, A Song to Slit Your Wrists By, which is a very underground song. I don't know if you remember, but I guess it was in 1997 or 98. Nikki Sixx had a side project called 58. I think he did it with one of the sons of one of the Bee Gees, a couple other dudes. The band was called 58. It was a really weird sounding album. Like had some industrial sounds, some like bluegrass sounds, like a weird mix of sounds. Very bizarre. But one of the songs on there was called A Song to Slit Your Wrist By. And Lita Ford covered it. Now, obviously, Lita and Nikki have a history. They dated back in the day. But still, for her to cover such an unknown song, I thought was really cool. And she definitely rocked it up. It's got a killer solo. The album was produced by Gary Hoey, the guitar legend. So like I said, it's just a real return to form, a real rock record. So definitely check this record out. It's Lita Ford, Living Like a Runaway. I think it stands up to her earlier, better work. And I think it's worth listening to. That's my pick of the week, brother.
Dude, great pick. I actually haven't heard the album, but I love Lita Ford, and I'm definitely going to check it out after the show.
Awesome, bro. Anyway, Jay, it's been a great show, as always. Always enjoy it. And look forward to doing it again next week, brother. Rock and roll, everybody.
Amen. Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Woo, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.